Johnny Baseball.
Hey, hi.
Hello. A lot has happened since my last video. Most notably, Bryce Harper got his pretty little butt whooped for the second time. Harper is now 0 for 2 in base brawls, though I do highly recommend owning him in leagues where getting whooped is a stat category. At least in this fight, the guy that spanked him was a young and jacked Hunter Strickland, and not a 35-year-old sociopathic maniac. Although maybe it's more acceptable to get choked out by a guy who looks like this. I mean, I run the risk of getting choked out by a guy who looks like that every time I get on the subway. I have to say, this fight was a baseball fight in every sense of the word, which is to say it featured about 2 seconds of actual fighting followed by about 10 minutes of people tripping over each other and grabbing each other by the titties. That said, what little action there was pretty epic. I mean, there are some still images of this fight that look like impressionistic paintings of the French Revolution. Also gave us this video of Hunter Strickland being removed from the field by 3 of his teammates, like a toddler being pulled out of a Toys R Us.
But I want the Stretch Armstrong dog.
In less lighthearted news, Mike Trout tore the UCL on his thumb and is going to be missing 6 to 8 weeks of the season. As a Trout owner, my feelings about this are pretty much summed up as... So you know what, let's move on to greener pastures. Let's talk about some healthy players who are going to help your team achieve greatness. So today I got 2 hitters that I think you guys in deeper leagues should be looking at. The first is a Mr. Whit Merrifield.
Yes, Jonny, if I may be so bold as to interject, my birth name is actually Whitney David Merrifield III. I would prefer it if you would call me by that name. I would wholly appreciate it if a cretin like you would show me the due respect that a man of my stature deserves.
I'm very sorry, my lord. So in addition to having one of the whitest names in pro sports, aside from maybe Lonnie Chisenhall, Merrifield has also excelled at hitting for a little power, average, and speed over the first month and a half of the season. And I see a couple signs here that this may not just be a flash in the pan. For one, he's cut his K percentage way down from last year. He managed to hit 283 last year with a 21.7% K rate. So the fact that his K rate is only at 14.3% now, I think is an excellent sign for his future batting average. His BABIP is a totally normal 299. His ISO has nearly doubled from last year, which is a very nice surprise. And he's done a really good job of minimizing soft contact so far. So I think the power gains could be legit even though he's never showed power in the minors. And that's reinforced by a 10% jump in fly ball rate this year compared to last year, which may point to a potential swing change. The other nice thing about this guy is he showed above average speed in the minors. He stole as many as 32 bases in a season, and he was putting up 40 stolen base on pace numbers last year in the minors. Second base position is essentially all his. He plays a little outfield, so he might pick up eligibility there later in the season if they end up calling up Raul Mondesi Jr. Hitting 8th and 9th in the order, but I think with this recent hot streak, Ned Bios has any common sense, he'll start batting Merrifield higher in the order, especially since right now his leadoff hitter is hitting about 190. So I think you're looking at a guy who's going to hit for a solid average, always had a little bit of speed, and could potentially have added some power with a change of his swing plane. Potentially looking at a guy who can contribute in every category. So next up we have Robbie Grossman, who's not quite as refined as Whit Merrifield.
Psh, obviously.
But nonetheless is doing some pretty interesting stuff right now. I really like the juxtaposition between these two guys. You got one guy who has a very proper sounding name and whose last name is Merrifield, and then another guy who looks like he pumps gas for a living and whose last name is Grossman. The differences don't just end there though. There are 2 very different kinds of players. The thing that catches my eye about Grossman is he currently has more walks than strikeouts, which anytime that happens in a decent sized sample, it's so rare that it just kind of makes you go. I mean, this guy has a 426 OBP right now and 141 plate appearances, which among players who have at least 130 plate appearances ranks him 8th in all of baseball, just behind Goldschmidt and 5 spots ahead of Votto. I mean, seriously, if you're in an OBP league, you need to snag this guy yesterday. The walks alone are pretty encouraging, but the fact that his K rate is an excellent 16.3% is pretty astounding. He also hits the ball fairly hard, although the ground ball percentage is a little higher than you'd like. Higher than his career norm though, so I think that's hopefully an easy enough fix. Kind of hard to tell where his power and speed numbers are going to fall because he's never had a full season and he's never produced at this level. But just looking at his track record, it seems safe to say that he'll likely, in a full season, hit in the high teens, maybe crack 20 home runs, and he has run before in the past. Still in his prime, I think he could probably give you a handful of steals along the way, and I think he's going to give you a above average, and an elite on-base percentage. The issue up to this point has mainly been playing time. He's been splitting the DH slot with Kenny Vargas, but Vargas just got demoted, and guys like Byron Buxton still haven't learned how to hit a baseball. I think he'll get a starting gig at some point if he hasn't locked it down already. And when he is in the lineup, he's hitting at the top of the order, usually second. So that OBP is going to turn into a ton of runs. I think this is mostly a guy you should target if you're looking for average and OBP. And I think he'll sprinkle in enough in the other categories to really help your team out. Alright, that's it for this week. Thank you for oh my god. Thanks for tuning in. And if anybody knows where Bryce Harper's helmet is, please give him a call. It was last seen sailing out over the San Francisco Bay, and he could really use it back.
Thank you. Bye.